This is nuts, man.
See that weather outside? That is some bullshit, right? There's no way in hell I'm going out in that mess, so I'd rather stay home, drink some rum and coke, and talk about my books with you people. Okay, 5 books I'm reading lately. First one is this one. It's called Dark Water. This is a film, not a film. This is a book you might know if you are familiar with Japanese horror. It's written by Koji Suzuki, and he is the guy who made The Ring. You know, that film The Ring. Quite a famous book, but also quite a famous film in America and in Japan. And then there's actually a film called Dark Water that is based off this. Although this isn't just like one story, this is one collection of short stories, right? And the commonality between each short story in this book is water. It's not like haunted water, there's no ghosts in the water, there's no fucking piranhas in the water, it's just water. As in, you turn on the tap, you go on the beach, there's the water, and that is the source of horror. Each story has something to do with water. For example, you've got a story where there is a water tower on this apartment block, and then all the horror seems to lead back to it. Then you've got this one where there's this boat adrift in the ocean, and then someone discovers the boat, but then there seems to be ghostly happenings on the boat, even though it's a small boat, but there's nobody else around except the water. And then you got one where there's this guy, he's cleaning up this nightclub, and then he turns on the taps for the water, and then he sees like hair coming out or something like that, but it's supposed to be unoccupied. It's just a complete focus on water. The thing I really liked about that book is that it takes something that is so ordinary and day to day, and it adds an element of fear to it, you know. I mean, after I read this book, I actually went to the tap, and I turned on the tap, and I like looked at the water, and I was thinking, like running my hand underneath the tap and thinking, how can this be scary, you know? Like, what can you do that adds a sense of ominousness to it, water? Because, I mean, water is the majority of the planet, right? And then it's in us, it's everywhere, we drink it, we use it for cooking, for cleaning, everything. But now, after reading it, you think, imagine if all those things were actually real stories, you know, these things really happened. It has a sense of cosmic fear almost, although it's not Lovecraftian at all. But it does have this fear like, wow, we are so fucked if this is really the case. I really enjoyed that. There's a film based on one of the stories. The film is called Dark Water, but in the book the story is just called like Floating Water, I think. That is the name of the short story, but there's a whole film based on it. There's an American remake of it with Jennifer Connelly that isn't so bad as far as remakes go, but the Japanese film is the one to go look at. So that's what I'm reading lately. Really love Koji Suzuki. Check him out. Okay, the second book I'm reading lately is this one, Battle Royale. And this book is quite infamous in Japan and somewhat famous in the West. And it is the book that Susan Collins, the writer of Hunger Games, ripped off. And don't give me some bullshit, you know I'm right. You know I'm right that she ripped it off. There's no coincidence that she just came up with suddenly the same idea with so many plot points being so similar. Fuck off with that. Basically, Battle Royale is about the sort of alternative Japan. It's not really set in the future or the past. This was written in 91 or 92, and that's sort of where it's set. But the Japan then is sort of authoritarian, and then they have sort of like this dictator leader. But it's not like hardcore dictatorship like 1984 or something like that, or Animal Farm. It's not that severe, but you still have your freedoms, but then there's some governments forcing people to do stuff. And one of these things is the program. And in this program they take kids, school kids, like seniors, like, I don't know, 15 to 18 year olds, and then they stick them in a secluded area. They give each one a bag which therein contains a weapon, a randomized weapon, so like an axe, a gun, knife, crossbow, and then also some food, water, compass, and a map and stuff like that. And then they have to kill each other. That's it. they have to kill each other. That is the plot of the story. What makes the story so interesting, though, is that it's one of these things like, what would you do? It's a what would you do kind of situation, right? So, if you're stuck in an island, right? Now imagine this, because this book is set in an island. And you're on this island with you are your friends, and your work colleagues, or people you know in every day, maybe your neighbors and stuff like that. And then you are forced to kill each other until there's one survivor, because that's the game. One survivor has to be alive by the end of the time, because I think it's set in a 24-hour period or over 3 days or something like that, and everyone has to kill each other by then, and there has to be one survivor. And to force everyone to kill each other, there are these necklaces they give them. They cannot be removed, but they have a bomb in them, and they're radio controlled. So if suddenly everyone decides, fuck you, we're not playing this game, all the colors explode and everyone dies anyway. So you kind of have this motivation to do it. Interesting thing is, how would you be in this game? Would you start killing people? Would you try to resist the program, even though it seems futile? Would you try and help your loved one survive at the cost of your own life? It really makes you kind of think, what would you do in that situation? Also, what is interesting is that this takes about 30 school kids, right? So each school kid sort of plays up a role that you would think would happen in this situation. For example, you got the school kid who absolutely wants to play the game. They're like, fuck yeah, let's go. Let's start killing each other, right? And then they go around the island massacring people. And then you get the ones that want to try to come together to form like a committee to, get out of this shit situation. And then what happens to them? They get blown away, Then you get the ones that want to resist the government. And then they actually spend all their time and resources trying to blow up the island, or blow up the guys in charge of the program. Then you get the ones that want to actually escape, and then you get other weird little situations, like you got two lovers, right, and they're together. Suddenly, what are they going to do? They're going to kill each other, but they're in love. So, in that way, it's a very interesting book. It's very thick, and I'm a short story guy, being all Lovecraftian and stuff. But I've read this like 3 times, and each time it takes me about like 3 days. It really is a great fun read. There's a lot of action, there's a lot of gore, but you also have a lot of feeling for some of the characters, There's some sympathetic people in there as well as complete arseholes. There's a manga, which is even more gory and even more sexualized. I downloaded it, but I never read it yet. There's a film with Takeshi Kitano, and that is just fucking amazing. That is an amazing film, and I urge everyone to watch it and then to read the book, because there are quite a few differences, but both are great in their own right. Rum and Coke is a breakfast of champions, I tell you. Third book. This one is written by the filthy communist red bastards of the Soviet Union. All that aside, it is quite a fun book. Written by Arkady and Boris Strugatsky. It's called Roadside Picnic. This one is a sci-fi book. Okay, like horror is my thing. So with sci-fi, my knowledge of sci-fi goes as far as like, I don't know, Star Wars or something. But this book I picked up because of a different reason, which I'll get to in this video. Basically, this book is about, how can I explain it? Okay, take the name, Roadside Picnic, okay? So imagine you go on a picnic and you're sitting on the roadside, okay? And what do you take to a picnic? You got like cans, you got like bottles and all the shit that you take on a picnic, like your food wrappers, tin foil and stuff. And when you leave the picnic, you're supposed to clear everything up, but sometimes there's stuff lying around, like a bottle top or something. And then the ants come, they are attracted to the puddles of soda, the bottle caps, the scraps of food, or maybe they find a piece of food wrapper which has like some jam still stuck on it, and they all come to around this area where the picnic was. and they sort of swarm the area, and they all want the stuff that humans left behind. So now you take that description, you replace the humans with aliens, and then humans are the ants. That is what Roadside Picnic is all about. This one was written in the 70s or so, I think, in the Soviet Union. And basically, it's about that. Aliens came to Earth, various areas around the world, not just the Soviet Union, mind you. And these places are now known as zones. And the things that the aliens left behind, like their version of bottle tops and stuff, have become like artifacts. And then specific areas in the zone have become like anomalies. And when I say anomalies, I mean it's like if you go there and you touch like the anomaly, which is like just this, I don't know, you could call it like an invisible alteration of physics in that specific area of the zone. So you put your hand in and then suddenly all the bones become like jelly, or gravity gets reversed or something like that. And then it's all about how humans react to these zones appearing on Earth, you know. First of all, everyone wants to have control of these zones because all these resources, right? So maybe you have like an alien bottle top, but it's somehow supplies infinite heat or something, and that becomes valuable, right? So it's all about this guy called, what's his name? Red Shoehart is a stalker, right? And he goes into the zones, and he's basically a black market supplier of these artifacts that the aliens left behind. And it's all about sort of his life as a stalker, one of these characters that goes into the zone and does all this stuff. Now, obviously, that's not the reason why I bought it, because like I said, sci-fi isn't my thing. But I am a gamer, and I fucking love Stalker. There's this video game called Stalker, for those of you who aren't gamers. It came out in like 2010, 2011, somewhere around there. There's 3 games, and it's all focused around this book. So you can think of it as a spiritual successor, really, because the Stalker video games have no aliens in them. It's more about the Chernobyl nuclear disaster, and it's all set in Ukraine, Pripyat and Chernobyl, all those areas. And the video game is based off of this, but it's a spiritual successor. It's kind of like how, for those gamers out there who are watching, it's kind of like how you had System Shock, and then BioShock was made from System Shock by the same people. But it's a completely different game, but you can see the connection, right? It's like that. And then it's basically the same sort of story, but in a video game format. But for those of you who are video game fans and who love Stalker, and you're thinking, oh no, okay, should I get this book because, you know, I like Stalker? You're going to be a little bit disappointed, I think. Stalker is a video game with a lot of mythos to it. There's a lot of canon to it. There's a lot of backstory and sort of things that makes a video game interesting. Like it's a tangible world, okay? But in this Stalker book, it's a bit of a miss, you know. It's not as much as you'd think. There's not as much content from the Stalker games in the Stalker book as you'd think. So in that way, it's a bit of a disappointment. But as a book by itself is worth reading. It's really interesting, and it's a new look on sci-fi. But what do I know? I don't know about sci-fi. The 4th book is called Steppenwolf. Steppenwolf is not a book that needs much introduction. I think it's pretty much been around for a very long time, since before World War II at least. And I think it's a book that's actually taught in schools, isn't it? It's kind of like, we never had it, but I understand that it's somehow taught in some schools around the world, so I heard. Basically, Steppenwolf is about this misanthropic misfit who lives in 1920s Germany, and then it's about his life. He just cannot connect with society around him. He just cannot. He is unable to fit in. He is unable to find happiness. He finds comfort in fiction and alcohol, and he leads an extremely lonely sort of life. And eventually he one night meets this guy who's handing out pamphlets for this club. But the advertising of the pamphlet is so specifically written that it seems like it was written personally for him. So he becomes extremely intrigued that this pamphlet could come to him. But then he tries to find this club another night, and he can't. But then eventually in the story he meets two people. One of them is Pablo, and he's like a club owner or something. And then there's another one, the female, it's like I don't know, I forget what her name is. But it's basically, she is like the antithesis of him. Like Harry, the protagonist, he's like this miserable fuck, right? But then she is like a bit more positive, cheerful. And so in their interactions, he sort of gets shown a mirror of all his flaws. And then basically these two characters, Pablo and then the female version of Harry, they sort of try and educate him on how he is misunderstanding life. You know, he's become so jaded and things that, you know, he was contemplating suicide before finding these people. And then it's all about his development as a character, and then it comes to a high point eventually in the book that I don't know what the ending of the book was about. So if you've read the book and you know what the ending was about, please tell me, because I really don't know. I mean, I read it twice, 3 times, maybe 5 times, this book, but the ending is still confusing to me. Like, what was the point? He didn't get the lesson that they were trying to teach him. Anyway, this is a book that I've never connected so much personally with any character, any character, fictional or any character that actually exists, a real person. I've never connected so well with anyone or found so much of myself in such a person, and that is not really a good thing, you know. I read this book when I was extremely in a shit frame of mind in life, so it was kind of like looking in a mirror. But then it also helped in a way because like Harry met this antithesis of him, and she reflected all the flaws that were in him. He eventually grew and discovered a little bit more about himself like that, and that was the exact same case with me in real life. But still, to read it, it gets me fucking depressed. It really does. I don't like to read it, but it's my most treasured book. Ironic, right? If you've watched my Gloom Syndrome video, I think you need to get that book, because if you connected with my Gloom Syndrome video and you understood what I was talking about there, I think you really need to get Steppenwolf. Really. Okay, that's all I have to say about that book. Okay, the 5th and final book that I've been reading for a long time now is Das Boot, which is German for the boat. This is about a German World War II U-boat. Now, I have a massive raging hard-on for U-boats. I really love U-boats, and I find great comfort in U-boats. That's like my fantasy, you know. If I could be like anything in the world, I think I would be a U-boat commander or something. That would be like what I'd want to do with my life, you know. You often ask people, oh, what do you want to do with your life when you grow up and all that shit, and oh, I want to be a banker, I want to be a fucking film star or something like that. That is what I would do with my life if I could. Be a World War II German U-boat commander. That, I think I was born for that kind of role. Anyway, the book is about this U-boat in World War II. Set in 1942 or 41, and it's basically about what these guys go through. Now, the average U-boat had to go out and patrol the Atlantic, and their goal was to destroy Allied shipping. You know, not really destroyers or military ships or something, but rather just the merchant ships bringing supplies to England for the war effort, and their job was to blow it up. So that sounds quite simple, right? But the book is so thick, so it's obviously something's happening. It basically it describes what happens on a U-boat, but it's told from the perspective of non-specific characters. And when I say non-specific, I mean that most of the characters in the book are more symbolic of people that played a role on U-boats. So you got like the commander of the U-boat, who's just called the old man, or the commander. And then you got like the first watch officer. He's not really given a name. He's just called the first watch officer. Same for the second watch officer, the navigator, all that sort of stuff. Or the characters are given like one-off names like Johan or something like that, or Dunlop or Ariel. These are some of the petty officers on the U-boat, and it's just like what happens in the U-boat. So that is almost entirely the whole setting. If you think about it, I mean, that's a thick book, right? That's not an easy read. It's like, how many pages? Like 500, almost 600 pages, and it's just set on the little U-boat. And U-boats were not big, so there's not much going on. So the problem with a book that some might find is that it's slow. But for me, it's not slow. Even the film had that criticism. The film is like 3.5 hours long. That's like Lord of the Rings level shit. But it's all set on the U-boat almost entirely, like 90%. But it's critically acclaimed. So obviously some people appreciate this sort of literature. It's basically what they go through. There's no more description. You know, they attack Allied shipping. They face times of extreme boredom. They get depth charged. They almost die numerous times, but then they come back. So it's kind of like a development of humans. You know, they go out as these young kids, basically, who are eager-eyed to fight the war effort for Germany, and then reality kicks in, and then they're sort of like, yes, we still want to fight, but holy shit, the price is quite high. And then it's just basically about that. This book is my favorite book, without a doubt. I think on my Lovecraft is always going to be my favorite. I'm not going to be okay, it's like this. If Lovecraft is my wife, okay, then this book is like the mistress that I fuck on the side. It's a strange way to put it, but yeah, that's how it is. It's like my comfort book. You know how like some people, they read Harry Potter or some shit, and then they're like, oh, you know, Harry Potter is my escape. You know, it's like it's my comfy book. You know, you can immerse yourself in the world of Hogwarts, and then you imagine yourself there, and then you feel all like warm and fuzzy, like this is where you belong. And it's like, yeah, that is how I feel about being in a German World War II submarine. I know it's a hard life. I know most of them died. Like 40,000 sailors went out in U-boats, and 30,000 got killed. So only 3 out of 4 died. But still, somehow I'm drawn to it. I don't know why, but that is what I feel about the book. Yeah, that's all I have to say about it. If you really love World War II literature, that's for you. But if you really get bored easily and you want a lot of action, you're not going to like that book. That's all I have to say for my video. As always, cheers and thanks for watching.